Hi, and welcome to the Loan Officer Team Training Podcast. I'm your host, Irene Duford, and I have with me a very special guest today. I know I say that all the time. Every week I say that, but that's because I only have special guests on my podcast. And today I have Joel Sharpton, who is my podcast producer. And I'm super excited to have him on here. And I want to say welcome, Joel. I'm really excited about the stuff we're going to talk about today, because today we're going to cover some stuff about podcasting and how it can help and just different things about it. Not necessarily that you have to go do a podcast, but it will be fun to kind of just share some ideas, because I know you have so many ideas that you've given me, Joel. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Irene, for having me on the show. First of all of your guests are special, so don't dismiss that thought. Yes, you introduce most folks that way, but it's true. I've told you that. Your circle of people are really, truly amazing, Irene. I very frankly had not done a lot of homework before you and I started working together, and I did not know you other than by the referral that sent you to me.
Yes.
And his word, Renee Rodriguez, shared you with me and said, take care of Irene. So I knew you must be somebody that was worth my time and attention, right? But I didn't know the reputation that you had or the history that you had in the industry. And it's funny, as I've gone through your episodes and I hear how your guests respond to you. I've done a couple of industry events even since I started working on your show, and I mention you or I mention your show, and they're like, oh, really? Oh, you're with the Freedom Club, folks. Oh my goodness. So you have a great reputation, and I am very thankful to be aligned with you, working on this show and to be on this episode specifically.
Well, thank you. What I'd love to talk about, just jump right in and talk about, what is it that you love about producing podcasts? Let's talk about that first.
You and I were just talking about it a little bit before we hit record. This is, and I tell my sons this and my daughters too, although they're a little bit younger, I want at least one of my children to take this business over from me. I feel like I'm cheating the universe, Irene. I get paid to listen to great content from ambitious people in varied industries as they bring on people they're interested in and admiring of, or longing to emulate in some way. And they all download their knowledge for me, and I get paid to listen to that and go through it and make it better and more concise and more precise for the listening public or the viewing public. I started out in the audio world. I come from radio, small market radio. I started in 2004 doing the overnight show. I was doing like midnight to 6. And I have always loved audio. I didn't know this at the time that I started on radio, but I've since learned the story of the Memphis Recording Company, the group behind stars like Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis. Sam Phillips was his motto with the Memphis Recording Company was, we'll record anything, anywhere, anytime. And he just wanted to capture the world around him and the sounds that it made. I think audio especially is an intimate medium. We tend to take it in our earbuds alone in the car while we're driving, maybe in the shower, even on a waterproof speaker or something. But even when we share it, it's intimate in that it's coming one way and we're letting someone else dream for us. When we listen to a storyteller, we're letting someone else imagine or dream for us. And that is super powerful that we give that up. It's one of the reasons why I like audiobooks almost more than textbooks or even ebooks these days, because I get to literally play it out in my mind. Also, and the same thing with podcasting, you can do those things while you're doing other things. So for high performers like yourself or your audience time is not a resource that they have a lot of. When you can take advantages of those little holes in time where some people might use Twitter or scroll endlessly on their phone or drift off into negative thinking, we can fill that time with learning, education, or even just entertainment, right? Something silly from time to time is good too. But that's how I fell in love with audio. I moved into podcasting from radio because I wanted to own my own work. Anywhere you work in radio, it's going to be a corporate structure. My corporate structure was very small. It was only 4 stations that worked together as a group. But still, any idea I came up with, a great show, a great interview I had, some funny jingle, all of that was someone else's property. Think of what's happening now with comics creators as their movies are being made with those ideas. maybe they're getting a little bonus 5,000 check from Disney, but they're not getting a percentage because they didn't own that IP. With podcasting, you own your own IP. There are no gatekeepers. There are no money men, middlemen in between to cut you out of the thing. And that's true for business owners too. And I saw that opportunity early on and said, let me lean into this and turn it into a business. I am so thankful to get to do what I do. And I really do. I do feel like I'm cheating the universe, Irene.
Yeah. And I love to see people who love what they do for a living, because that's what I love what I get to do for a living. And it's such a blessing, isn't it? To love what you do and to kind of feel giddy about it, you know?
Every day is full of hardships, no matter who you are or what you do. Everybody has troubles. And it's not about how big your troubles are versus someone else. It's about learning to lean into those struggles, to find a struggle that you can enjoy. And maybe for my own case, here's, and I know mindset is one of the things that you like to talk about most, and we're going to get there eventually. But one of the big changes for me was to take personal responsibility. I've been listening to Jim Rohn lately.
Oh, that's a good person to listen to.
Right. But I'm currently listening to an audiobook from him that's like a collection of his speeches and things all put together. It's like 11 hours worth of content. And personal responsibility is the chapter that I just passed over. And I used to think, even 5-10 years ago, these self-help gurus and people who are like, you just got to take responsibility, you just got to take action, positive movement, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, yeah, but they don't take into account all the negative circumstances, all the biases that people have to face, et cetera, et cetera. I realized that's not what it's about at all. And this finally made it hit home for me. That the whole concept of personal responsibility is not about blame or looking down on people who don't achieve or anything about that. It's literally just about you. It's not about anybody else.
That's
it's
right.
about my situation right now and how can I improve it? If you don't like things in your life, if your whole ethos is about, well, the government's bad, or this group is bad, or my negative relatives are bad, or I've never been taught how to use money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then you have no hope because you can't change any of those things.
Yes.
Whereas if you say to yourself, I can work harder, I'm good at these things, I have these relationships to lean on, I know this information that I can share, I know these resources that I can tap into to gain more skills and knowledge, then you have not just hope, but like possibility and expectation, and you've got a goal to strive for it. Anyway, it's a total shift, but that shift it's revolutionized my business. It's made me a lot happier on a day-to-day basis. And I've become a real evangelist for it, honestly.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's so fun though. So in podcasting and in your business, the different things that you've done throughout your life, what's one experience that you've had that might have been hard, but you really learned something really good? And none of this is pre-planned. Just for the listeners to know, I didn't ask Joel any of these questions in advance. This is just conversation that we're having, which is my favorite way to do the podcast.
I've had a bunch. I've had a lot. I'm divorced and remarried. My wife, the love of my life, Kelly, she was a widow when she and I met. Her husband died due to self-harm, very young. Both of us could have just sat in those sadnesses. We like to call ourselves a second act story. I love second act stories. I think they're the best. Those twists that come after a while when things look gloom and dim, and not just good can come out of that, but triumphant good, you know?
Yes.
She's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I wouldn't have found her, and we would never have connected if either one of us hadn't suffered those tragedies. I'm not saying if I couldn't get in a time machine and take those back from us, I wouldn't. But at the same time, without them, I wouldn't have this person that is everything to me.
Yeah.
So that's one. That failure, that crash, I learned a lot from that. However, the one that I want to lean into and talk about a little bit is the crash of my business. We were talking before the recording about the beginning of the pandemic and how that changed my own podcasting, and it did pretty rapidly. It also decimated my business. I got cut in half in a week. I was working with a ton of hobbyists, people whose podcasts were about and I don't want to pick on these areas, but they were about a TV show, or they were about, their lover of a sports team. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think podcasting is an excellent medium for that. And there's also money to be made through those hobbies. Ask my friend and client, Jonathan Oakes. He runs Trivial Warfare. That show is all about trivia. It started just because he and his buddies like to do pub trivia, and they wanted to bring that experience to the podcasting world. But it's evolved. He's got 4, 5, 6 shows, I think now. He's got a whole media group, and he's making almost as much money from podcasting as he is from his very cushy job. There's money in those hobbies, but
Yes.
for a podcast producer, there's not a lot of consistency in those hobby areas. I am disposable income for those folks.
Yes.
So what I learned through that experience, and I did get cut in half, I reached out, first of all, to the network that I had and the folks that I knew, some of my older clients. I raised rates on some older clients that I had for a long time at the same rate. I told them exactly what I was facing. And I said, would you mind, would this be let's do it over a month or something like that. We'll make the shift. Every one of them, without a doubt, said, absolutely, let's lean back in. They understood the circumstances. They were probably facing similar circumstances in their own business. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that I did was I reached out to a couple of folks in the real estate and mortgage industries. I reached out to Dustin Brome and Phil Treadwell. Phil Treadwell runs the Mortgage Marketing Executive Show. Dustin Brome, he owns and runs the Massive Agent podcast. Mm-hmm. And the two of them had told me before, oh, we'll send you referrals. And they had sent me a couple of referrals, but I hadn't leaned into it. I've never had any sort of like referral structure where I do kickbacks or thank yous. I still don't have that, by the way, but I thought about it then for a minute, actually. I'll tell you, Irene, I reached out to those two and I said, folks, help me out. What can you do for me? And they immediately started sending me names. They started kicking the tires of a lot of people that they had said in the past, hey, you ought to have your own show. Why don't you have a podcast? It'd be great for your business. They re-entered those conversations with some folks and stirred some business for me that way. They connected me with other connectors, folks like Kyle Draper, who his show is called Social Media Mindset. And he just has when this episode launches, by the way, he will have had a book come out today. I'll look that book up in a minute, but he's got a book all about social media. And you loan officers that are listening to this, especially, you and your team need to know how to take advantage of social media. That's one of the things Irene and I are really focusing on today is everyone is a content creator if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur. So think about that. Kyle, though, is just a furnace of referrals, and he just passed them out left and right. And so all of a sudden I rebuilt my business, and it wasn't overnight. It took me about a year and a half to get back to where I was. And then now I've surpassed that. But now that business is built firmly. First of all, it's on a lot more clients, wasn't such a small base. And I've got a lot of different services. Some people, I just manage their podcasts, really post and mix, master and publish. Some folks I do full edits and write show notes for, like you. Some folks, it's somewhere in between, right? Some folks I'm doing videos for, some folks I'm only doing audio for. But all of them basically now, I'm part of their business strategy. I'm part of their marketing budget, not their disposable income. And so my business is more stable and secure. I can count on that revenue month to month and quarter over quarter. There are rises and falls seasonally based on the nature of the market and like live events that I do and I'm part of and things like that. But I have a base that is significantly higher than it was before that I can count on. And that's a lesson I learned. I will never put my business in the disposable income category for my clients again.
Yes, that's a big lesson. You know what I love about the way you describe that is the people that you are connected with connected you with other people. So you are involved with connectors. And those connectors connected you to other people who are connectors because like attracts like, right? So I'm a connector for sure.
You've already given me a few referrals too. Here's the lesson that I want to impart. And I think this is a big part of why I thought this episode would have value for your audience. If you're not great at this currently, if you can't honestly look yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I am also a connector, but as a loan officer, especially, or you're a loan partner, maybe that listens to this, and you need that skill, you need to be a connector. It's one of the big values that we can bring to all of our clients. How do you improve that skill? How can you practice? How can you put the time in? Guess what? A podcast is a great way to learn how to be a connector. You're forced, first of all, to interact with people that you may not know well or may not know at all. You're forced to do a little research. Who is this person? What are we going to talk about? And how am I going to lead the conversation? You're also forced to learn the skill, Irene, of leading the conversation. You're the host here. You've got an agenda. This isn't a negative thing, but you've got an agenda for what you want to get out of me.
Yes.
I've obviously got an agenda for what I would like to share with your audience too, right? Now, in a perfect world, those align perfectly and we never have to deviate from just a natural free-flowing conversation. But I've seen you do it. We're going off into this direction. You're like, this doesn't have value for my audience. Let's talk about this. And you can refocus that. You can reframe the story that's happening in front of you. Podcasting allows you to put in the hours and to get better at all of those things. So
It really
if
does.
you want to be a connector, start a podcast.
Yes, that's a great idea. And a lot of loan officers have started a podcast and they interview successful agents. And that's a really great way to do it. And sometimes they can do it just for their own enjoyment. They can recruit that way as well, right? A loan officer could also have a podcast to show how great their knowledge, not how great they are, but their knowledge.
I think there are a million different ways that you could take this. And I think so this is part of the process. The first thing that you need to decide is you need to agree with us. You need to buy into the idea that you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a loan officer, as a loan partner, you are a content creator. Yes. Buy into that first. Once you bought into that though, then you have to ask yourself, what is the format that I want to present this in? And here you start with, what do I like? What do I enjoy? What do I enjoy taking in as a viewer myself? And also, what could I enjoy creating? So, for instance, here's a simple one, Irene. When I wanted to get active and more active on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, I wanted to just reanimate and reactivate my social presences. The first thing that I decided to do was, I'm a big movie buff. I watch, on average, over the last 5 years, like 150 movies a year. A lot. I watch a lot. But people don't know that generally. I don't talk about it a ton. I tried for a while, maybe even doing like video reviews. I wrote blogs with like mini reviews for a long time, but who reads a blog anymore? So the thing that I finally decided to do was the platform I use to track my reviews is Letterboxd. It's got a great website and an app. I said, I can take that. I can share an image with my star rating. I can share that to Instagram stories and put that up on Facebook as well. And immediately, within 2-3 days, I had gotten 5 or 6 DMs from different people, and none of those were about business, but it was like, hey, I didn't know you liked that movie. Or, boy, that's a real stinker, isn't it? Or that's way too scary for me, or whatever. People were interacting with me on a one-to-one basis that hadn't in the weeks before, simply because I had thrown a little content out there. All it took was one extra little share on my smartphone, my supercomputer that we all carry around in our pockets. But it was just the thing that I was already doing. I like movies. Let me talk about movies. If you're a big sports buff, talk about sports online.
Yes.
Whether that's just snapshots and a caption, whether you want to put your face on camera once in a while, talking about your favorite team, or just wearing the gear. Irene, I've noticed you've commented on a few of my posts because I wear a Dodgers cap a lot. You're a Dodgers fan, right?
I'm a Dodgers fan through and through.
But whether those people that interact with me are Dodgers fans or they hate the Dodgers, that blue ball cap every now and again is going to get me a comment, right? Yes. So it's those sorts of things that you can do to just start testing the waters, find out what you like, find out what you might like to do. And then you just lean a little deeper into that, or find out, oh boy, I don't like that. Well, lean away from that and into a different angle. Not all of us have to be YouTubers. Not all of us have to be podcasters. Not all of us have to be Instagram stars. Not all of us have to be on TikTok at all. But if you own a business, you have to talk about your business. And the place to do that in the modern world is on social media. So we've all got to be content creators of some kind. So that's the first thing I would say. And then to dig deeper into that about like how the angles that a loan officer specifically, or a loan partner, or a loan team as a whole, what do they need to do with a podcast, or what could you do with a podcast? You could do, first of all, you could do what you're doing, which is a little bit more specific because you've got training and courses, workshops specifically for loan teams. So your podcast is not just about your training. It's not even mostly about your training, but anything that is on your podcast, you take the opportunity once in a while to tie it back into, this is why it's important to build a team. This is why it's great to have real training. But loan officers don't have time to train their teams. You see, you're providing points through the content that's happening naturally to reference why I'm useful and the services that I can provide to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a hard sell. It's the softest of sells, but it's genuine, it's real, and it makes your podcast more meaningful and direct as an avenue to your business. How else could you do it? Listen, I don't have any courses. I don't want to teach anybody how to do this business. I just want to close loans and sell homes, right? Okay, great. What could your podcast be about? The number one thing that I would do if I was anywhere real estate adjacent, loan officer or real estate agent directly, or a brokerage or a real estate firm or any of these things, I would want to be the mayor of my region.
Exactly.
On social media and in podcasting and on YouTube. And you look, I'm not going to pull out any specific examples. There are a bunch around there. I don't want to call anybody because I'll leave somebody out that I should mention. So, but there are people that are doing this well already, but you could just go around and interview business owners, entrepreneurs, interesting young people in your area that are doing special things. Somebody who started a foundation, somebody who's running a charity. All of these things, a great new restaurant opens, right?
Yes.
All of these things are interesting and compelling content about your region. And who's highlighting it? Every little area has been robbed of our local newspaper. Most areas, the TV stations have consolidated down so that you've got one TV station maybe for, 400 square miles in every direction. Mm-hmm. Everybody's overworked and stretched tight, and they're all forced by the incentives of their own mediums, by the way, to focus on sensational stories. So you can come in to an open medium and take advantage of these people who want to talk about their stuff. And what have you now created? You've created every single one of those interviews that you have is somebody who loves you and loves your show, talks about it to all their friends, tells people what a treasure you are, how important you are to the region and area. Do you think any of those people might buy homes?
Of course.
Do you think any of those people know anybody who might buy homes in your region?
Yes.
Do you think someone who's moving to your region might Google your area and think, what are the schools like there? What are the restaurants like there? What are the attractions that I can take advantage of when I move to insert your town here, right? So that would be the number one thing that I would do if I was a loan officer, a brokerage, a real estate agent. And again, there are people that are out there doing that well, but that's low-hanging fruit. If somebody's not doing that in your market and you're thinking to yourself as you're hearing this, well, I got an iPhone. Well, I know a little bit about, I made some videos back in the day. I was in theater in high school, whatever. Yes. Friend, what are you waiting on? Get out there and take advantage of that opportunity. That's number one. Here's another one that I think so few people think about or offer. Straight up 101 type college level courses on mortgage and real estate investment. And some people are doing this, obviously. Lots of people are selling that type of thing. But here's the two values that you would get out of it as a mortgage officer or a brokerage. If you created that kind of content, first and foremost, you could just use it internally to train new partners, team members, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. You want to explain the business to somebody and onboard them where they have enough knowledge to help you file the proper paperwork and whatnot. You want to get all of your team members thinking entrepreneurially, where they're all working for real estate investment, where they've all got portfolios by the time they've been with you 5-10 years. Start a podcast where you explain that information, where they can listen to it on their free time, where they can share it with their family members, where they can share it with their peers. That sort of thing would establish you with a level of expertise and reputation and you're like, well, I don't want to give it away for free. Why not?
Not exactly.
The knowledge is not what you bring that is valuable, honestly, because we've all got Google, right? Anybody can find the knowledge if they want. The value that you bring as a loan officer that is doing this kind of education would be that you're showing people I've got nothing to hide. Mm-hmm. And all I have in my interest is your interests. I want everybody to succeed with this magic tool that we have, which is called real estate investment, right? And listen, I speak as a convert myself. I haven't invested in real estate yet. I am still building my nests, okay? But I have understood through working on shows like yours, there is no other ladder we talked to earlier about consistency, stability, right? Reliability, things we can count on. There's no other ladder for your average American that is as stable and secure and reliable as real estate investment.
That's for
It's
sure.
It's just true, right? Snoop Dogg knows it. That was the joke that went around on TikTok a while ago. If you don't own land, you don't own nothing, right? With Snoop Dogg saying it on some interview. But it's so true, Irene. And so you all are the wizards. You all are the priests that have this information to share with the general public. And when you share it, what do you get? You get a customer and a client. And once you truly share that knowledge and that mindset and that understanding that real estate investment is the engine to wealth and to freedom, well, guess what? You've got a repeat client, right?
And that's the best kind of client there is, right?
Yeah, right. So this is not just about the American dream for loan officers. This is about education and the cluing. I mean, it's not the Matrix, right? But you want to wake people up out of the stupor and say, hey, look, come over here into the real world where you can make real money and you can keep it. Anyway, like this is a magical box that you all have access to. And I think more real estate folks, more mortgage folks specifically, I think this is really more for mortgage officers and mortgage partners and brokerages than real estate folks. But either way, you got to share that knowledge, and one or both of those things, right? And you could do both at the same time. You could go back and forth. You could have an interview where you highlight some local business or attraction, and then you have a download where we're just talking business and I'm explaining this to you. Or you could do it in seasons. Hey, we're going to do a season where we talk about my local area and why I love it. We're going to do a season where we talk about real estate 101 and why real estate investment is the path to financial freedom. And it's real. This isn't hokum. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not easy. If it was easy, we'd all have already done it, right?
Yes.
But it is simple. Mm-hmm. It is repeatable. It is learnable. And absolutely. I've got the system, and that's what you should be doing as a loan officer. So this is not rocket science. This isn't a mystery. You got two ideas there. If you're a loan officer or a loan partner that's listening to this, go and talk to your team and get that thing started.
Do you have a loan partner who does the loan consultations, structures the loan, and converts the buyer to work with you? Or maybe you have a loan partner who you would like to move to that position so that you can be freed up to go get even more loans. How about a newer loan officer who could benefit from some training in how to convert buyers to work with them? Our client conversion training is very specific to this role. It will help them convert even more clients to work with you and your team. Here is what we cover, at least some of what we cover. How to have clients that regularly say, yes, I want to work with you. Learn emotional intelligence and how to connect with clients on a deeper level right from the first conversation. Increase confidence. Discover the key to a successful mindset. Memorize scripts, dialogues, and we'll do it with live role play. Set your team apart from other loan officers. Build trust with clients. Win over the rate shoppers. Get more referrals each month. Answer objections from clients with confidence. Structure ideas to give clients great options to build wealth through real estate. Present different loan options clearly and effectively. Master the buyer loan consultation. Know the value of communication and follow-up. Build a great rapport with your team. Our next client conversion training class starts Thursday, April 13th, 2023. It's a virtual interactive class on Zoom with live trainers, and your team members can attend from wherever they are. As long as they have audio and video, everyone participates. It's a 10-hour live class divided into 4 2.5-hour sessions from 9 to 11:30 Pacific time on Thursday and Friday for 2 weeks in a row. Sign up your loan partner at loanteamtraining.com. You'll find the class on the Client Conversion Training tab. Years ago, I got into video marketing through Carl White. He taught me about video marketing. And when nobody else in my town was doing it, I was doing video. And it used to be you had to do an ad. right? And then you do some cold calling, right? But you did an ad, and then social media came out, and then we could put things there. So YouTube, we were able to put things on there, and then Google helped a lot. Obviously, you get Googled when you do things like that. But now we have podcasting, which is taking the videos that you do to another level. They don't even have to watch it. They can just listen to it, which is what I really love about podcasting.
Let me tell you the biggest difference between video and podcasting. And first of all, I think as a business owner, video is absolutely essential. Social media likes it much more. There's no place really on social media. The different networks have tried it at different times, but none of them have a native audio format that anybody likes. You got to make a video out of it. Now you can take your audio and put it with a static image and a little waveform. There's a bunch of apps that do that, and you could put those out on social media, and that totally works. But video is necessary for our modern age. Audio. Here's why audio is important, and podcasting specifically is important and powerful for business owners. It is an opt-in medium. No one happens across your podcast accidentally. No one listens to it forcefully in a doctor's office or something. No one stumbles onto it even by a random search. Even if they search for a topic and they find a specific episode, they then have to click into that episode to get more details, and then they have to click play. It's, again, they've opted in. And if they follow your show, because that's the nomenclature we're supposed to use now, by the way, follow, not subscribe to podcasts. You subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, everybody, if you're watching Irene and I on YouTube, but follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Podcasts. But when you follow a show, though, you are, again, opting in. You're saying, this person is very interesting. I would like you to send me Irene's content whenever she creates new stuff. It's not, in the case of YouTube, notify me. You click the little bell and you get notifications when new uploads are sent. Or if you subscribe to a channel, there's a tab that you can go to and you can see your subscriptions listed with all the channels, the most recent video in order. Podcasting's not like that. Most apps, if you follow the show, when the new show comes, they're going to send you the download. It's going to be there in your app waiting on your phone for you.
Yes.
Boy, that's powerful.
Yes.
And again, think about what those people have chosen. Would you give anybody the ability to call you automatically whenever they wanted to? No, right? Call somebody, and when Irene calls, you go ahead and turn that FaceTime camera on and just go right into it. It doesn't matter whether I'm getting out of the shower or not. I want to talk to Irene. Nobody does that, right? We don't give anybody access to that, access to us in any way like that, other than podcasting. And over time, if someone continues to follow you in your show, they develop a deep relationship with you. Now, it's mostly one way, unless they're giving a lot of feedback and you're speaking to them through some other medium. But for the listener, they know the host in a way that, depending upon the nature of your podcast, maybe even your spouse doesn't, right? Your spouse doesn't sit and listen to you talk about all of your thoughts about topics for hours and hours on end. But there are podcasts with hundreds and hundreds of hours of episodes where they've talked about everything in the world, and those listeners know every little in-joke. They know the time that their dad embarrassed them in grade school, all of those things that come up over time, right? That's powerful. Mm-hmm. Podcast listeners go to live events. They purchase coaching and courses. They purchase products. They order mattresses and pillows and vitamin supplements and vehicles and everything in between because they fell in love with a podcast and the podcast host.
Yes.
Now, how could you as a loan officer take that power of a relationship and use it in your own business? The leverage that you all could create with those kinds of relationships, even if the audience is never large. Yes. Irene, I'm not talking out of school and we're not going to give specifics, but your audience is not huge. But haven't you already felt the connection that you felt
absolutely
with that audience?
Yes.
Let's talk about feedback for a minute. What is it like, and how have you found that to get the feedback on the show that you've been creating?
I love it. I am amazed at the feedback that I've gotten. I didn't even know some people were listening to it, because you can't tell who is listening and who isn't. You just know that people are listening, right? You can tell by your downloads. You can see on the other end how many people you have listening, but you don't know exactly who they are. I'm sure they'll create that at some point, but you don't know exactly who they are. But so it's surprising sometimes when people say, oh yeah, I listened to that podcast, or I heard you talk about this. And it still surprises me because I haven't been doing it that long, but it still surprises me. And it tells you how many subscribers you have too, which surprised me as well. So it's kind of fun, to know that you're giving valuable information, because that's the reason I started the podcast, was to give valuable information about different topics, not just loan officer topics. As you know, because you've done all my podcasts, you've produced all of them. There's been times where we talk about someone who knows how to give presentations, somebody who teaches us about self-talk. I didn't want a podcast that was only about the loan business. I wanted to mix it in a little bit to give a little bit of variety for people that are listening. Of course, we're geared towards loan officers, but self-talk is an important topic for loan officers. It's very important.
But that episode, and I shared some pieces of it because that episode did a lot for me personally, Irene. I don't want to get off track though. We'll come back to the
this is good
self-talk, I promise. For loan officers that are listening to this, as content creators, it's not just about our business. We should focus on our business. That should be what we're creating content for in the broad scheme of things. Honestly, I think that because if we're doing things right, we ought to be integrated, right? Our life should be aligned with our business. Our business should be part of our purpose, et cetera, right?
Yes.
But even if that's not super you've got to bear parts of yourself in this content that you're creating, whether it be through a podcast or whether it just be through Instagram and Facebook posts or something. Don't just make it about your business, because if it's just about your business, then why are people choosing you over every other loan officer that they already know, or the mortgage officer that their mother used, or whatever, right? The point of the social media world, and why, Irene, this whole thing, I think, really rolls into something that you've been doing for decades already. That idea of self-talk, speaking into the world what you want and claiming your own goals, and then following it up with footsteps, right? You got to put the physical action into it, or your goals are just wishes. We're not throwing coins into the fountain here. But if you put the traction behind it, the social media world makes that true in a way that never was true for business before. You couldn't just wish and hope and be yourself and draw people into you in the 70s or the 80s. It didn't happen because, as you said, you got to place an ad, or you got to call the radio station, or you got to go to the TV station, or you got to get in the newspaper, or you got to do lunch and learns at the Sizzler, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Today, Facebook and Google and YouTube have built these businesses and TikTok, they've built these businesses that are on the back of our content. And here's the scam, folks. So listen to it and take advantage of it. Everybody's like, well, you are the content. Yes, but guess what? Your content can be advertising for somebody other than Facebook. They're going to sell advertising against your content. They're making money when people scroll. They're making more money when people stop scrolling for a minute. So if you can create compelling content that will make them stop, Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, all of them will love to serve that content to whoever they might have on their apps. And if that content involves drawing people back to you, then it benefits you too. That's free. You don't have to ever place an ad on anything.
That's
Irene,
right.
You just make the content and put it out there. And if it's good information that's entertaining, if you're genuine, the people who want to work with you will, in fact, find you.
Yes.
Google and TikTok and YouTube and Facebook all are serving it to them on purpose. They're daily working on the algorithm to figure out who that person is and how can I get Irene's content to her. Everyone succeeds in this algorithm thing. And once you realize that, oh wait, the universe has bent in our favor for some reason. Like,
yes.
Excellent. Let's all grab onto it though and take advantage. And you can't do that if you don't start creating the content.
And in creating the content, you can take pieces of that content, and you could get one piece of content and create 20 pieces of content from that one piece of content.
This, again, is why I think podcasting is so great, and why I do think more people who won't ever really consider it unless they're exposed to some sort of conversation like this, hopefully, I think more people should consider it. There is no easier. Everybody's like, well, I don't want to make videos, man. Like, I'm not going to learn a TikTok dance. I don't even read that many books, Irene. I can't make a series about what I read or whatever. But that conversation that we have when we have a a podcast like this. You and I got on a Zoom call, which everybody knows how to do. Zoom is recording this thing for us.
Yes.
I just put my iPhone up here on my Mac. It's connected through continuity camera. You got a great camera. We both got a little setup behind us, so we look nice. We put on our nice outfits today, so we look good for the camera, right? But this is just a conversation. You and I have conversations off the air all the time through email and text or whatever.
Yes.
How many conversations do you have a day in your business and daily life, right? Dozens.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just capture a few of those, and then you'll find, is every moment of it golden or $1 million idea or wonderful? No, probably not. Most conversations might not have value for public consumption, but a couple of your conversations every week do. And even if the whole conversation doesn't, there are moments within it where you have a revelation, or the other speaker has a revelation, or together you come to a pithy version of knowledge that you both had before, but you've never been able to make it so concise and bite-sizable and digestible. And suddenly you're like, boy, if I could bottle that, I would have changed a lot of people's lives, right? Well, guess what? If you were recording, you could change a lot of people's lives with it.
Yes. There's been so much gold that you have talked about today, so many ideas. I think it's great. One thing that I always ask people, and now I'm going to ask myself the question. I've never done this before, but as you were talking, I was thinking, I'm going to ask myself the question. What is one thing that if you could go back and do it again, what would that one thing be? What's one mistake you've made that if you went back, you would change it? And not too many things, right? Because we all learn from things, right? When we make mistakes, we learn from it. And that makes you who you are, as we were talking about earlier. But for me, it would have been, I've had this idea to have a podcast for years, and I didn't do it. I talked to Carl White about it. I talked to Steve Kiles about it. I talked to everyone I know about it. All of, my coaching friends and people that I coached, and just friends, family, everything. But I didn't take action on it. And if I'd have done this when I first started the training company in 2019, oh my gosh, what a difference it would have made. And I would have reached more people, because I'm all about helping people. Of course, I want to get people to come to the training class because that's how I make money. Of course. But my biggest passion for training people is because I didn't get trained when I came into the loan business. That's part of the reason I coach people. I coach loan officers. But the reason I started the training company is because I want to help people. I want to help loan officers to succeed. And that's how we do it, is by helping. Because when you help the team, you help the loan officer and you help the team. So it helps everybody. And I'm passionate about it. But what if I would have started this in 2019? What if maybe I wouldn't have met you then? I don't know, whatever would have happened, right? But if I'd have gotten started in 2019, imagine what would be happening right now with how many more people I could have helped. And that's how it is for loan officers. How many people can you help as a loan officer? It's all about how many people you get in front of. That's what it's all about. And I joke a lot about it. I have this amazing training company, and it's like, I joke that it's this well-kept secret. Well, it's not a secret. It's just that I haven't spent time really telling people about it. It's kind of like when I was a loan officer, I worked in an area where you could do USDA loans, which is 100% financing, no money down. Most of the time, the seller could pay the closing costs. And that's how we worked it. But did I tell enough people about it? No, I didn't. There were people that we could have helped that we didn't help because I wasn't standing on the rooftops telling people about it. Well, I'm done with that. I'm done with that part of my life. I want to tell people what we do in our training company, because we help people to succeed in our training company. We not only help the loan officers succeed, but the loan partners, the processors, all of the back-end support staff, they all succeed because of what we can teach them in our training. And so I'm passionate about it. I want to teach them that. So that is the mistake that I made by not doing it back then. I talked about it and talked about it and talked about it and didn't take action. And, Carl used to say years ago to me, you're an implementer. The first time he said that to me, I looked at him and went, I am? Like, nobody ever told me I was an implementer before. And I used to jump on things really quick. But then when you get busy and you're doing things, sometimes you have a tendency not to jump on things. So This was one of the mistakes that if I could do over again, I would. And imagine how many more people we could have helped. And so that's what I want loan officers to think about today. Are you missing an opportunity to help more people? Because I know all the loan officers that I coach, that's what they're all about. They're about helping people. Yes, we get to make money. Of course, we have to make a living, right? But it's about helping people. And if they can do video, if they can do audio, if they can do a podcast, all of those things are going to help them to reach more people. And that's really what it's all about. I'm just at the beginning of my content journey, just at the beginning of it.
Absolutely. But
And
Irene, that is exactly my regret as well. By the way, I started in radio in 2004. I was living in New Orleans in 2008, and I had like an hour and 15-minute commute in the morning, and it was like an hour and 45 in the afternoon or evening because of traffic across the city to get back home. That's when I started listening to podcasts in a big way, and I was listening to a ton of them then. I had all the know-how in the audio world. I even had most of the gear already. I had microphones. I could have gotten audio into my computer. I could have made these recordings. I could have learned how to do it just like the people. And it's not like podcasting was even brand new then. It was already 4 or 5 years old as far as like in Apple Podcasts and things like that. So I should have jumped on then. Instead, I waited. My first show didn't launch until 2012. I launched my business in 2016. Well, the math isn't hard there, folks. If I'd started my podcast in 2008, when I first saw the quality and the opportunity in that medium, then my business would have launched about 2012 instead of 2016. And so,
yes.
Irene, when you started your show in 2019, I would have already been ready. I would have had those connections with folks like Renee to connect you with me. I think about Renee. Renee was another one that he put off his own show for a long time. Oh, what would I say? I sell that stuff. I don't want to put it out for free. All sorts of excuses. There are all sorts of reasons not to produce content.
Yes.
But Irene and I have already given you hundreds for why. And you just made the best point of all, Irene, and I want to center it in and underline it, and then I'll stop taking over your show. You are all about helping people. Any service industry, any business owner, any entrepreneur should be, if you're a good one, about helping people. The laws of the universe are that it is abundant, it is vast, and there are too many opportunities for any one of us to take advantage of. There are also, if we admit to ourselves, millions and millions of potential clients and customers that you don't want. That's not somebody that you want to work with, let alone that they would want to work with you, right? So it is not about a competition game. It is not about humility either. That's another thing that I hear people say. Well, who am I to start a show? Who would want to listen to me? You're someone with knowledge and experience.
That's right.
And information to share that can help other human beings.
Yes.
And yes, you can just make the phone calls that you've got lined up this week. You can just talk to the people in your area who have filled out a comment card or who have signed up for information or who have reached out on a website or whatever. Or you could reach the 7.5 billion human beings that are on the face of this planet today, or at least all of the ones that speak your language or can read the transcribed captions by just getting out there and being you. Irene's not asking you to be nobody is asking you to be Oprah, right? We don't need you to be a TV host. We don't need you to be Joe Rogan. We don't need you to be a long form content creator. But if you're a business owner, you've got information and education to share with people. And not all of those people are in your area, or in your market, or in your budget, right? Not all of those people will be able to work with you, but all of those people can benefit from your knowledge.
And they all know someone who can work with you.
So it comes back anyway. That's the other law of the universe that I forgot. It's the law of reaping and sowing. When you sow, you reap a multiplied reward. You don't get back what you put in. You get back a multiple of what you've put in. When you put in diligent work, when you give information and education away, when you help people, the universe will come and help you.
Absolutely. I agree. When I got your name from Renee, I was super excited to get started, but I didn't know where to start. I had no idea where to start. And that's what held me up for so long, is I didn't know exactly what to do to get started. But when Renee gave me your name and I trust him, I knew that I could count on you to be the one. And I have just had the most wonderful experience podcasting, because all I have to do is record it and send it over, and you do everything else. And of course, I look at it and I very rarely have to make any changes because you're so good at what you do. But it would have taken me forever to do it. And so that was it. It's a plug and play for me. And that's why I enjoy podcasting so much, because all I have to do is the fun part. It's this part right here, talking to my guest.
I think that there are obviously different needs for different people, right? Different people who are out there listening to the show, they might not all need what you needed from me, which is not only the backhand stuff. That's true. The other thing, though, that I think you needed is a little bit of positive reinforcement, a little bit of this talk that we've already had, which is like, hey, it's not about humility or being braggadocious. You've got information and education to share. Or what does it look like when someone reschedules, Joel? Well, here's what it looks like. And here's why the audience won't care. Or here's how you can avoid that in the past or in the future. You mentioned earlier, you're bad about bringing up and reminding people about your training. That's happened in the podcast, right? You weren't putting in as many references. And I brought that up. I was like, hey, you know what you could do? We could do this. And you'd be like, well, what about X? Yeah, not only that, we can do dynamic advertising insertion. Irene, do you have a live event coming up this month, right?
Yes.
Okay. That live event, we can take that information that you record once. We're going to put that in the episode like normal this week because you just recorded it. But I'm going to take that specific information out. I'll put that in an audio form and paste it as dynamically inserted content for just the time window that you want in every episode that you've already created. So again, once you create the content, you're going to find all sorts of different ways to use it, to take advantage of it, to apply new information or new experiences or new opportunities to it. But none of that can happen if you don't start creating the content. And I think some people need someone to show them those sorts of ideas. Some people need almost coaching. And I do this for some clients. It's like, I don't like my voice, or I don't like the way I come off on camera, or how can I make myself feel more natural when I'm trying to work from a script? For instance, that's something that you've worried about. Do I look natural reading off of a teleprompter? Okay, here's a note. Let's give a little education and information out for free. I'll put my money where my mouth is here, Irene. The number one thing you can do to be more natural when you're reading from a teleprompter or using a script. And by the way, you don't have to have a teleprompter. You could just have your script just off screen, right? And do this exact same trick. Cut your video in individual phrases for delivery, right? Think about the way that we speak. We take pauses, we take breaths, we think about the next thought sometimes. We have a natural flow and delivery to our content. We don't just deliver the thing staccato all the time, all the way through at the same speed until we are done with the information. First and foremost, that's boring. Second of all, it's not natural at all. So for video, lean into that. This doesn't work for live, right? If you want to live stream to Instagram, this isn't going to work. You're going to have to be more natural than this even. But if you want to create produced content, pre-produced content and release it, then literally deliver your script in line by line or phrase by phrase, sentence by sentence, whatever you can hold and keep as an idea. Here's the other thing that will do. If you're not directly looking at the script the whole time, while you're delivering that phrase, that sentence, that little section of wording, you might end up paraphrasing it, right? How will you paraphrase it, Irene, into a more natural for you language?
That's right.
So you write out a great script and you make a good point. You still make that point in the video, but you'll make it more naturally you. Then you come into the video and you cut, or you hire somebody like me or even a VA. So a lot of this can be done overseas, by the way. If you're not worried about all the technicality and you're not worried about the coaching back and forth, that's the thing that is more hard when you're crossing cultures or time zones. If you want a real interaction and a real partnership with your producer, like you and I have, then you really honestly want someone who's a native English speaker, and you want someone in a close enough time zone. You and I are not in the same, but we're close enough that we can work together anytime. If you just need strict production, I just need somebody to cut up this content. I know what I'm doing as far as creating it. I just want somebody to cut it up, and I don't want to edit that. That can be someone all over the world. Absolutely great work can happen even across a language barrier. You might have a longer turnaround time, right? But that's okay. You produce ahead of time and you build a pipeline of content that you're putting out. But if you do your scripts like that, phrase by phrase, and then have someone cut it or cut it yourself where the individual phrases are lining up. You take out all the gaps as you look over to the script, et cetera, et cetera. Now you've got real, genuine delivery on each individual phrase. And you've got some dynamic cutting in your video, which TikTok and YouTube and Instagram are all going to like better. Also, you've got a natural point to do the cool zoom in thing, right? Where you get in on the face, or you take a different angle of what you're looking at, or you focus in here, or you broaden it out, or all of these things make your video more dynamic, more compelling for the viewer, and also allow you natural points to put the delivery together for yourself so that you're not expected to learn a whole paragraph or get brilliant at reading from a teleprompter script.
Right.
Not everybody has that skill, and you're never going to develop it. Yeah. Simplify your life is all I'm saying there. So it's a little bit more work on the post-production side. You got to cut it up. But once you either get good at that, or once you hire a team to do it, that's just part of the process. And what you get there is genuine content created well for yourself that also leans into the habits that people want on those social media platforms.
Yes. You've given us so much good stuff today. We didn't even get to our next topic, which we were going to talk about self-talk a little bit, but we'll do it another time.
Absolutely.
You can come back on and we'll talk about your takeaways about self-talk.
I'll tease you with this. For years, I didn't believe in the concept of self-talk. I didn't think that it was applicable to my life. I thought it was mumbo jumbo or woo-woo stuff. But I realize in retrospect, I was already doing it through creating the content, through having these conversations with other people who were interested or ambitious or directed or whatever. Silly conversations and serious ones. I talked it out. And I think anybody else can do that too. So
yes,
we'll get to that in a longer form.
Yes.
Irene, thank you so much for sharing your space with me and letting me talk to your audience for a little while.
Well, thank you for being on, and thank you for everything that you do to produce the podcast. I sure appreciate you, and I love all your ideas, and I'm so grateful that you were on today. I think you shared some real gold nuggets with the loan officers that are listening, and other people, other businesses as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and if you have, I would sure appreciate if you follow us, not subscribe, right? As I learned today.
That's right.
You follow us on whatever podcast medium that you listen on, and we just appreciate you so much. And if you have enjoyed it, I would sure appreciate a 5-star review. That would really help us get seen more. And I'm just grateful that you were here today. And I hope you got some good value out of it. So enjoy the rest of your week. And thank you once again, Joel, for being our guest today.
Thank you, Irene. Thanks everybody for listening.